Welcome yet again to another area of my flat. Today, I'm going to be honest, I have a bunch of laundry drying and I cannot film where I normally film. So we're here today, and that's okay. We're just going to make the best of it. And we're going to hope this video isn't as incredibly horribly lit as the last one. I am aware that my lighting is not ideal. I do not get the ideal sunlight in through the room where I film. So here we are. So for my lecture today, I just kind of wanted to catch up with what's been happening because we're 2 races into the season. Technically both for F1 and F1 Academy, if you count each individual race F1 Academy does instead of the weekends like I do. And a lot has happened, specifically in F1 Academy much less so. But I thought it could be fun to just do a little news and updates section about what's going on, and we'll just casually chat. And this is more for like remembering. We're here to remember. It's not necessarily meant to be detailed, highly broken down, highly statistic, blah blah blah. So let's get into it. Our first big update that happened over like the last month basically was that on March 7th, F1 Academy finally announced their final driver for the year. Let me just open my notes. They announced British racing driver Chloe Chong as their final driver for Rodin Motorsport. She is going to be sponsored by Charlotte Tilbury, and she wears number, I believe it is 27. And she's actually coming back to F1 Academy after a year hiatus. So she raced with them in 2023, and then for 2024 she did British F4, and now she's back. So she is technically a sophomore, but unlike all the other sophomores, she didn't choose to race 2 seasons in a row. Super excited for her. Let's see what goes on with the women. Moving forward, we get to Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix, sponsored by Louis Vuitton, as they like to shove down our throats, which the luxury sponsorship of Formula One is something I could go into in depth at some point, but that's like writing another master's dissertation, and I simply just don't think I have the bandwidth to do that. I've written one. Do I need to do another? It wasn't eventful, but it was for a season opener. Let me see here. We had 3 drivers. I say it wasn't eventful. And our first lap alone, we had 3 different drivers crash out at 3 different spots. So none of them hit anybody else. It was mostly like spinning out, crashing into walls, things like that. But in order, it was Isaac Kadir, Jack Doohan, and Carlos Sainz, all first lap, gone. And this is because it had been raining all day and it was still a bit slick on the track, so they think a lot of that contributed to these conditions, blah, blah, blah. Right. I'm not here to go into it. I'm just here to tell you what happened. This is followed by in lap 32, Fernando Alonso will crash out. He will. I'm saying it like it's a prediction. In lap 32, Fernando also crashed out. And then shortly after this, in lap 45, and Bortatello, gosh, I need to be able to read. So yeah, lap 45, Bortoleto crashes out as well, and this is followed by Liam Lawson just 1 lap later in lap 46. Aside from that, race was pretty standard racing. We had Lando, Max, and George finishing your top 3 in that order. And a bit more devastating news, or just somber news I should say, we found out on March 20th that Eddie Jordan had passed away. Eddie Jordan is a former, he used to own an F1 team, you know, in the 90s when like you could just own an F1 team. But that would have been Jordan Grand Prix. He worked with Michael Schumacher, and he also, after that, basically switched to working in commentary. He worked for BBC. I believe it was also Channel 4. He worked on their team for F1. He did podcast stuff. He was really involved. And then in recent years, he helped Adrian Newey get out of his contract there, and he was working with Aston Martin during the season before his untimely death. But basically during the Shanghai Grand Prix, that is when F1 did their tribute to him, and you had all the drivers out on track doing their moment of silence, and Aston Martin released a special bit on their car for him, a shamrock, because he is Irish, on their car with, I believe, his name next to it. But moving right into Shanghai, why do we race? Why do we race? We race so Williams can get a €50,000 fine. Basically for just not... Sorry, we're going from something that was so serious to this. Williams got a €50,000 fine for basically just not turning in footage from cameras to show how bendy part of their car was being. And it basically ended up just being like a miscommunication error that they just didn't give them the video on time. They're still gonna get fined like 50 grand. I love stupid things. So that happened on Friday. And to be honest, I was reading the article about it. It's so technical. It is so technical. My little brain broke. But yeah, I think they were looking at like how much, like, I want to say it was a rear wing was like bending, and you just had to turn in footage in time, and they just didn't do it. 50 grand gone. After that, we have Hamilton winning the sprint race, and then we just go straight into the full race, where during the race, Alonso is the only driver who retired, and this was actually due to like a really major brake issue. He basically said that the brakes had been hot for the first 3 laps, so he retired in lap 4. And when he went to go brake into one of the turns, his pedal just went all the way down. So like for most of us who have driven cars before, you know, when you brake, you have like resistance. So it's really good he did retire, because as he himself stated, if he hadn't, he could have ended up in like a much worse crash from just not being able to slow down than if he would have left the race. So far, Fernando Alonso is the only driver to not have finished any of his races, which is unfortunate for those of us who had him on our fantasy teams. It's me. After the race wrapped up, there was also a few disqualifications from the grid, starting with Pierre and Charles, who both came in with their cars underweight in the post-race weigh-up, and then also Lewis for being in breach of a technical regulation regarding rearward skid. I'll be completely honest, I'm just here for vibes and good times. I don't know what the technical things mean, but I think it has something to do with like drag or something on the back of the car. That's my best guess. I'm probably wrong, I'll be honest. And then our results for this race, we had Oscar, Lando, George in the top 3 spots. So McLaren has won both races. Max didn't even place in the top 3 in one of the races. Double yay. It's shaping up to actually be an interesting season race-wise. And that's actually what I'm most excited about, is I'm really hoping, even though McLaren has dominated these first 2 races, that George is showing enough. He's been on podium for both races as well. I'm hoping we see enough like struggle between a couple teams for dominance, as opposed to just one team flat out dominating, because it's always more interesting when you have something to watch and you have fights happening. And I'm not talking about just on track. I love it when my catty little girls come out in their press conferences, I'll be honest. But aside from that, that weekend we also saw F1 Academy host their first races. To be fair, these were like 13 and 11 lap races. You're not getting a ton of interesting racing happening. As I have complained about before, the races need to be a bit longer to make them more interesting. But aside from that, we had Pomowski winning race 1 and Pin winning race 2. And that kind of wraps up what actually happened during the race weekend. And now I will move on to perhaps the biggest story that came out in the last few weeks. Liam Lawson is no longer racing for Red Bull Racing and is effectively switching places with Yuki Tsunoda, who had been at Racing Bulls. So they're just kind of doing a switcheroo. And yeah, interested to see how that goes down. A lot of this basically comes down to them just not feeling like Liam is racing at a high enough level. This is really fast for a team to basically just go no to a driver. I do feel like, especially in F1, I get it's a lot to be not getting the points you want because there is only so many races, but like also you need to give people more time. But also, big Yuki fan. I'm so excited to see him in a Red Bull. And to have his first race nonetheless be his home race. But I will be very interested to see if Yuki's able to step into this role, and I'm really hoping he is, and I'm really hoping the issue isn't actually the car's bad, and that is what people fear, I'm afraid, is that it's not a Liam issue, it's not going to be a Yuki issue, it is going to quite literally be a car issue. But hoping for Yuki's sake, it isn't. Good luck, Icon. Enjoy your home race in a Red Bull. Please get points. Please get points. Yuki, please, I am begging. But aside from that, the only other thing that's semi-interesting is just kind of related to Yuki doing his home race in a Red Bull, is that Red Bull will be doing a specialty livery during this race, where their livery is all red and white, so their bulls are going to be in red and the rest of the car is going to be in white, basically celebrating their partnership with Honda. And that, I think it's their 5th and final year, I think, because Honda's leaving completely. But yeah, so super extra special race for him, really excited for him. I hope we keep the interesting season going, I guess is what I was going to say. I hope we can keep the season interesting like this. I love when stuff is happening. Insane that Lance Stroll is outperforming his teammate. Wild. But with that is quite literally all I have of like my little news and updates corner. I only really did the big stuff. I didn't feel like we needed to talk about every statement one of these men gave. Please let me know if you like this video style, if you want to keep doing it in the future. I know I'm for sure probably going to do it for more historic races such as like Silverstone and Monaco, and just kind of give a recap after that. And I might also do some fashion reviews around at least Monaco. Yeah, but aside from that, I will see you in our next lecture, and please, as always, remember to do your homework by liking this video, leaving me a comment, and hitting subscribe, and I will see you for our next lecture. Bye-bye!